And the imposter syndrome will stop people from writing books, from, asking somebody out on a date, starting a business, and especially when it comes to getting on camera or getting on the microphone and creating a podcast, and just talking to people. And it doesn't matter, like, whatever their success, they could have graduated, had a master's degree, be very successful already in business, and still that imposter syndrome will creep up.
Welcome to Out of the Box with Christine. And now, here's the host of the show, Christine Blosdale.
Welcome back to Out of the Box with Christine. I am your host, Christine Blosdale, your expert authority business coach. And I am so very happy that you're joining me today because I have an extra special guest who's from across the pond, so to speak. I'm actually recording this in New South Wales, Australia. And my guest is in the UK, Mike Pritchett. And I'll tell you, Mike, I rarely get to speak to people. I rarely get to speak to people in the UK because of our time zone differences. So I feel that this is a pleasure and an honor to have you on Out of the Box with Christine. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Excuse the voice. It is early in the morning here, but yes, you've got an Aussie across the pond in the UK.
I was wondering when you booked this, I said, why is it so late in the day? Why is it so late in the day? And then now I understand. This is intercontinental content is what we're talking about, folks. My guest again is Mike Pritchett, and Mike has had such an interesting career and is someone who I wanted to have on the show because Mike understands the power of media and media content. And I wanted to drive this home to my audience because that's my mantra. Video is king. And if you can't do video, do audio. And if you can't do audio, write a book, do something, get the content out there. And Mike has come from an interesting background. He's created multi-million-dollar companies and was the chief production officer at a little place called Shootsta. He's also the host of the podcast Failure to Launch. And I'll put that in the show notes, a link to that, because you got to catch it. It's a great show. And he has some really fascinating guests. So Mike, tell us a little bit about, you started off with Trapdoor Productions and media content, video content, creating. This was your baby, right? This was the first big company that you started?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny you say that I understand the power of media, and you certainly think I should. I've been in it 20 plus years, but in a self-deprecating way, I'd like to admit that it's only the last 6 months that I've realized the power of media for myself as a founder. For the last 20 years, I've been producing videos for the world's largest brands, and I've been obsessed with their brands and their videos. So my first company I started 20 years ago, still have it today in Sydney and in the UK, called Trapdoor Productions. And Trapdoor was always about creating high-end content, TVCs, commercials, et cetera. But now, I guess 11, 12 years ago, one of my clients came to me and said, look, thanks for the big budget TV commercial. Now we need to film the CEO, the CFO, the CTO, the HR manager, the manager's sub-manager, the EA, the receptionist. It just went on and on and on. And as a professional in the industry, piece-to-camera interviews are kind of the black sheep of the family. You really don't want to go and do them, but you'll go and do them. And at the time, they cost about $7,000 to film. And she said, look, it's just too expensive. Our budgets are staying flat and our need for videos going.
Our budget is $7,000 for all 55 people.
Exactly. And so it was funny, actually. I got quoted in the media back then for, I've learned what not to say to journalists these days, but I got quoted for saying it took me 3 months to get my head out of my own ass, right? Because it did. It did. That's the reality. I took this comment of we need more videos, less budget, and I thought she was just trying to get a bargain. And something that she said stuck in my head, which was, if we need this, then so do many other companies, right? So I took that to heart, and I sat down and came up with a model to help large companies create more content at scale. And the model was quite simple. It was, how do we train their team how to shoot content, provide them with a custom-built camera kit and resources to shoot their own content, and then we do the post-production in 24 hours.
Nice.
Right? Simple model.
Wow.
Back then, back then revolutionary. Now everyone does it. There's plenty of different companies that can do that content. Back then it was absolutely revolutionary. So we took a model and I scaled that out from Australia. We were pretty much bootstrapped Australia out to 7 different countries and built it up to, in the end, 20 million ARR as a business with 400 of the world's largest brands. We had tens of thousands of users on it, and we were doing about 1,500 videos per month. So it was a huge factory of content going out. I left Trapdoor Productions on autopilot. And unfortunately, it went really well. It kept going, kept creating great content, more of the high-end sort of content. And since I've come out the other side, I'm now really obsessed with helping other founders work on their personal brand through podcasts and videos through Trapdoor Productions, because there is nothing more powerful than building a large brand, exiting out the other side, and then sitting there and saying, what now? What have I got? It's
right.
I kid you not. I sat here at this desk and I said, it's me, myself, and ChatGPT. So I literally wrote into ChatGPT, here's my LinkedIn profile. Now you know me. What should I do next? Right. And I had nothing.
It did not say
money.
Create a podcast.
No, it literally said, based on your background and what you've done, why don't you go out there and create a personal brand around entrepreneurship and coaching and business, all this sort of stuff. It literally told me all of what we're talking about. Yeah. I thought it's pretty smart. In fact, a hilarious story. Yesterday, I put a question into ChatGPT about, it was actually Perplexity, to be honest, which I love. If anyone doesn't use Perplexity, jump on it.
Oh, please. I don't even know who that old bitch ChatGPT is. I don't. Perplexity, for those who don't know, is like the more sophisticated sort of older gay uncle of ChatGPT. Really,
what a great way to put it.
I love Perplexity. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So Perplexity, the best way I've ever. Somebody told me this slogan, and I said, "Okay, I'm in." They said, "If Google's a search engine, Perplexity is an answer engine." And that's what I use it for every day.
Yep.
But anyway, I had a hilarious little virtuous circle that I found quite fun. I wrote into it a question around sales and marketing and everything else. And one of my business coaches, I know, Dan Martell, he's a friend of mine, and he often says, "What are you pretending not to know?" And I was, if I'm honest, I was typing a question in that I knew the answer to. I should know the answer to, but I was just typing in there for some reassurance, I guess. And it came up, and number 3 was around starting a podcast for your own personal brand and all this sort of stuff. And it had the little source, as you know, it has the number there. So I clicked on the source and it came up with this CMO podcast. I know this CMO podcast. What's that? So I clicked on it, and it's a podcast in Singapore with this very well-known presenter in Singapore. And I clicked on the episode. The episode it was resourcing was me.
No.
and I literally sat there and said, did I just get redirected back to my own podcast that I recorded 5 years ago in Singapore?
Wow.
It was a light bulb moment where I thought, oh, shut up. You know what you're doing. Just get back on with it and stop asking Perplexity what,
for reassurance. Right.
For reassurance. But anyway, we all need reassurance. So back to podcast, back to personal brand. I built Shootster up. I built Trapdoor up. We still create podcasts for the likes of Warner Brothers Discovery. We create a lot of content, but the old painter's house is never painted. I never looked after my own personal brand. I never put my own content out. My Instagram was private. My Facebook was private. My LinkedIn was flailing along, and I'd post in there once a month about something random. And then I realized, okay, maybe there's something in all of this stuff that I keep spruiking for the last 20 years. I'm going to go out there and create a podcast. So created a podcast and created a lot of content off the back of that. And now I'm obsessed with helping other founders do the same, because it's been amazing for me. And it's not so much about, hey, now I'm some, major influencer. People will still go to my Instagram and go, we have had no success. There's no numbers there. But the success I've had out of the network I do have has been incredible.
Yeah. And it's not about that. Like you said, it's not about, if you're a true creator, which I feel that you are, it's about the creative inside of you, and it's about what you can create. And it's not about you. That's one reason why, like, I had 20 plus years in Los Angeles at a radio, in a radio business. And it was because I didn't have an ego. It was never about me. It was about the audience and what they're getting. It was also about the guest and pulling out those beautiful gems that only someone who knows audio or knows, the world of audio, what questions to ask, what questions not to ask, when to stop talking, when to have that pause, all those things. And that's a creative, it's like the giving tree, the apple tree, right? You just keep making apples. But people like us too, we are so invested in our clients, the customer, the company that we're creating for, that we tend to neglect our own house, right? We're busy cleaning up other people's houses, selling them for millions of dollars, but then our own house we sometimes don't take stock in. So that's what I'm excited is that, welcome home, you're back to your brand. And maybe also you can also give some tips, some guidance for people who are right now in the process of creating their brand, right? I tend to think that your brand is not that logo or the color chartreuse. It's you. It's your energy. It's your vibe. It's your, that kind of thing. But maybe you have some little golden nuggets you could pass our way.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Okay. There's a thing in what you wear and how you look, and your brand is very distinct. And if you turned up without those headphones on, you would look different, right? So there is a level to branding.
And I wear black. And
you wear black, and you've got a white background, which is
because of Darth Vader.
There we go. Nice.
It's because of Darth Vader. Blame it on Darth.
I love it. Yeah, love it. And that's a brand, and that's great. But as you say, it's not everything. If you turned up and you were wearing that and looked like that and had that background, and it's great because you've got a contrast between your background. The reason I wear a white t-shirt is I've got a dark background. It's not necessarily because I can't pull up any character to show you why I'm wearing white, but it's simply about contrast to the background. So simple things like that for me are important. I think quality is important. I think shooting content that sounds great, most importantly. And I noticed when I joined your podcast, it was, message, please bring a rock solid mic. I was like, I like this. I'm on. Otherwise, my joke around that is that if you don't look after the basics of quality, it's like turning up to a nice boardroom meeting in your pajamas, right? Exactly. You're just not going to do it, right? And you're not going to hand over a business card that's got, 100 GSM. You're just going to actually make an effort and put the effort into a nice business card. Not that any of us have those anymore. But on a branding level, as you say, it's all about the passion and the energy that you bring. And I think on a return on investment level as well, when founders look at any activity that they're going to take on, they've got to look at what is the opportunity cost, right? If I go and sink a bunch of hours into this, I'm not sinking a bunch of hours into something else. So the right thing to do is weigh it up and say, is it going to get me the same ROI? Right. Mm-hmm. So my first question to that is, what is your goal with a podcast? Right. Mm-hmm. You and I are creative. We could sit here all day long, pulling out the gems from guests and really loving the emotional stories that we were able to create and the beautiful piece of work that we put out the other side. Some founders, accountants, lawyers, they don't care about that.
No, they don't.
And they're going, that's fluffy stuff I don't want to know. Right. So why would an accountant or a lawyer have a podcast? Well, the simple answer is people buy from people, and you need to have a relationship with a person for them to buy from you. Now, I've got an opportunity here. Okay, so let's just say I run a boutique law firm here in London, and I want to get in touch with a particular company, the founder, CEO of that company, to win their business. Hi, Mr. or Mrs. Sorry,
I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, well, you've got an option. Hi, Mr. or Mrs. prospective client. Would you like to buy my business? No, thank you. Boom. Okay. Hi, Mr. or Mrs. prospective client. I've got free tickets to the football. Would you like to go? No, this is weird. Who are you? Bye. Or I have my producer or myself call them and say, or message, email and say, hi, we're really interested in your expertise. Would you like to join our boutique podcast? It's a set series that we're running 10 episodes on around this particular topic. Ooh, yes, I would. Right? 9 times out of 10, the answer is yes, I would. And then what are you doing? You're not sitting there at the football trying to schmooze them or having a sales call trying to sell them. You're sitting there saying, so tell me about your earliest childhood memories where you remember you wanted to become an expert. Like you're having deep conversations that you can't have in a sales call, and you're building a relationship. At the end of that call, perfect. Take them out for a drink. Go become friends. A very easy transition. So on a selfish business level, but it's not selfish. As entrepreneurs, we need to sell. We need to build our businesses. Podcasts are powerful at getting you in front of the people that you want to meet.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's about, it's a really brilliant, it is a brilliant idea too, that getting those people that you want from the radio days to even the podcast days, the people that I admire, right? Those are the ones that I'm going to go after. And I remember it was Dr. Judith Orloff. I've interviewed her a few times, and she's just brilliant. She's like an expert on empaths and empathy, best-selling author, just a lovely lady too. And I remember when I reached out to her, I had to reach out through the publicist of this big publishing house. And they were like, yeah. Everybody wants to have an interview with her, blah, 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 blah. And then when I dropped that I want to have her on a radio show, but I also want to have her on the podcast, it was like the message went right to her. They sent it right to her, and she replied to me immediately. She's, I'd love it. Right. And they love it because also they're, especially like authors, a lot of them are quite like nerdy, the introspective. They're not big flamboyant personalities necessarily. They're thinkers and they're writers. And so they like that intimacy. They know that they don't have to go into a studio where they're going to be on camera and have to wear makeup and, going onto a TV show. It's something that they could literally do at their home, right? And they're comfortable in their home and they can be with you. And it is developing that relationship so that the next time you call them, they're like, of course I want to be on your show. I had a great time.
Yeah.
Developing that.
And that's the beauty of, we are very lucky to be in this period in history where we can set up a camera in our home office, home studio, and create content with people around the world. I think that's just super cool. And it's not about, hey, big studios, big setups. Sometimes great. I believe all social media content, it's a relationship, it's a conversation. And Google put out these recommendations over a decade ago now around Hero Hub and Help or Hero Hub and Hygiene. I don't know if you've heard those ones, but they're really interesting. And the same applies for a large brand as it does for an individual entrepreneur. It's about hero moments. So having those tentpole pieces of content that you put out, and you do spend money on those. Those are decent budget things that you're going to say, I'm going to go out there and do. The hub level is more the pull content. It's push content that people taking on online. You push it out there once every couple of months, and it's maybe mid-budget stuff, but it's something you put an effort into, right? So I'll take the camera outside, I'll go around, and I'll create content. But then there's pull content, right? So somebody's looking for it. It's help content. They're saying, how do I do this? How do I do that? Right. And whatever your product might be. How do I launch a business? Hopefully they come across failure to launch. And that podcast is there as pull content for them to take down. And the whole point is it's about a relationship, right? If you're having a conversation with someone, let's just say you have a partner. If you take them out to an incredible weekend away once a year, right? Or maybe even a week away, once a year. And that's your thing. You spend all your money on that, and then you don't speak to them till the next year. Right? You're going to have a pretty shitty relationship. But if you take them away for an incredible week away, and then you do another one, and then you do another one, and in between, you have date nights. And then, lo and behold, every day, you talk to them. Right? That's what social media is about. It's social. It's back and forth. It's a relationship. And if you're not putting your content out there every single day, you're mute to your partner.
And you're mute to the world if you're trying to promote your business and all. Let's talk too about because one of my things why I tell my clients, and it doesn't matter if they're some of them are writers. I have a private investigator. I've got coaches. I've got all kinds of different people. But I tell them the value of creating a podcast. And when I say podcast, Mike knows that I'm talking about a podcast, a video, the video version.
Podcast just feels like it's something from the 90s. I think all podcasts should just be video now.
Yes. We'll call it vlogcast or vodcast or whatever we want to call it. But the reason why I say it's so valuable is because it is probably it is the most inexpensive marketing things you can do. Because remember back in the day, to put an ad out, even on radio, but an ad in the television or print, it cost a fortune. Cost a fortune.
And you barely get results, let's be honest. And
the radio and the stats from radio, people ain't listening to radio no more. Because that was programming that was delivered to you. You had to like it. Right? It's 4:00 in the afternoon and this show. I don't really like this person, but so you would do the, switching through the dial. we've had this revolution in the last few years where we get to pick the content that we want. Now, there's different genres. There's people that are into true crime. They love it. Women into true crime. I don't understand that, but they really love true crime, murder mysteries, right? Me, I like, motivational. I like shows like I like stuff that like gets me excited about creating and being in business. I like that kind of stuff. And then I like some woo-woo stuff, I like some spiritual, woo-woo. But we're able to get the programming that we want as opposed to being fed programming, whatever's on your nightly news, television.
Yeah.
TV ratings are down, radio is down, podcasts are up, audiobooks are up. People are choosing.
Which is great, because now it means you've got to actually create content that's valuable, not just content that is content. Like ads are being forced down your throat. Now, if you want to get a message across, you need to add value. You need to have a message that's actually useful, that somebody can actually share around. If there's no level of virality to it, if there's nothing in this podcast that somebody listens to and says, didn't think about that. Now I've learned something and I might share that with my friend, then there's no point.
And don't sell. If people will
call 1-800 now.
People smell an infomercial a mile away. And that's probably one of the biggest hurdles when I'm training people on how to create a podcast. I say this is for your business, but it's not your business. Does that make sense? And they go, what do you mean? And it's about building that trust factor. And if you're doing the video version of it, people are going to look in your eyes. They're going to be able to see you. They're not going to think that you're some, secret character in an dark alley with a trench coat. They're going to be able to see you and see if they like you. But if they smell a sale, they're going to run.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's what I do. I run if I smell a sale.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You've got to be adding value in the content that you're putting out there. And I think a lot of people as well, the old world thinking was, let's put up firewall between us and the client. And if they want this information advice, then we're going to hide behind this. Or even maybe we'll give you a small white paper with a little bit of what we know, but we need your email address, your phone number, your firstborn child's blood type. These days, it's about just put it out there. Put it all out there. Put the content out there. If you're great, then put all of your information out there. If somebody gets value out of it, then whatever product or service that you're selling as a business, they're more likely to buy that than someone else's.
Based on that trust factor as well.
Yeah.
Because
absolutely.
they're like this person, I adore this person. I love their voice.
Yeah.
They can't steer me wrong. Oh, so how long have you been doing the podcast Failure to Launch? How long have you been working on that?
But Failure to Launch is a funny story. So this is, you actually asked, what would be the first thing somebody should do when launching their podcast? And the answer I give is not going to be what you would expect me to give, right? So my first answer to do would be come up with a name. Doesn't matter if it's the name you use at the end or not, but tell all of your friends and family that you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Now, maybe avoid the auntie that's negative and wants to shut you down on every idea. But everyone else, just tell everyone you're going to do it. Right. And in a time frame, give them a time frame that you're going to do it. Why? Because it's really embarrassing when you don't do it. And the reality is you're not going to do it. You say you're going to do it. You're not going to do it. You're going to pretend you're going to do it. You're not going to do it. You're going to have false starts to think about doing it, and then you're going to find 100 reasons not to do it. So tell everyone that you're going to do it. Become accountable to the fact that you said you were going to do it. And the reason I say that is Failure to Launch. The reason I came up with the term Failure to Launch is that I'm obsessed with helping founders launch, right? What is the psychology that stops people from getting off the couch and actually doing the thing that they're going to say they're going to do, right? So now I'm working on helping 1,000 entrepreneurs get to their first million in revenue, right? Just launch, get started, get to your first million. We have a group that will take them from the 3 to 5, 1 to 5 million up to 20 million ARR. But the goal is just get started, right? Get launched. And so that psychology on what's the mindset? Why do you say you're going to do something? And I've had hundreds and hundreds of people across my career come to me say, oh, I love that you started this business. I had that idea. Or, I was thinking of doing something. Or even the best one, like, I've got this idea. What should I do? Great. Let me tell you what to do. And I tell them what to do and they don't do it. Right? So what is it in that psychology that stops us? And then 20 years later, they go, "Oh, I wish I started that when I was young. I'm too old now." No, you're not. You're not too old. It's never too late to start a business. My grandfather was actually the oldest working man in Australia, interviewed by 60 Minutes.
Really?
Post 90, still working, right? And loved it. It wasn't working because he had to. When I told him, "Why don't you retire?" He said, "Retirement's for old people. Why would I?" And he's
Cute.
over 90 years old. So that's the mentality, is how do you get launched? How do you start? And the first thing I did was tell some of my entrepreneur buddies, if you want to be on my podcast, I'm launching a podcast called Failure to Launch. And it's going to be with entrepreneurs around how they got started, why they got started, and what almost stopped them from doing so. Anyway, I remember distinctly, I was driving back from my flying school back into London, and a buddy calls me and he says, "Hey, just wanted to give you a heads up on something." I said, "What's that?" And he said, "You've failed to launch Failure to Launch." And I remember distinctly, I got off the phone. You know what I did? I created content straight away. I turned my phone, my camera off, around, and I said, "I just got a phone call from a buddy telling me he's realized that I've failed to launch Failure to Launch. He's called me out. I have to do it. I'm doing it. I'm going to launch Failure to Launch." And I posted that video. I literally pulled over and posted that video to social media, telling everyone that I'm now going to post Failure to Launch and that I'd just been called out for failing to launch Failure to Launch. Right. So that would be my first thing that I would tell any entrepreneur. I'll call them somebody that wants to be an entrepreneur, somebody that wants to start a podcast. Just go and tell everyone that you're doing it. And then you're accountable to do it. The steps on the mechanics on how to do it, they're simple. You train people on that. And there's great tips on how to do that. I help people produce the content to the, where we are actually on the shoot and producing it. And we do that with a lot of people, but it's not about that. It's about the mindset. It's about the, yes, I'm going to start, right? And stop getting obsessed with the little stuff.
And getting over those obstacles in our minds. Those, a lot of times, the things that stop, especially with a great deal of my clients are women, 40, 50 plus. Mm-hmm. A big deal is still that imposter syndrome. And the imposter syndrome will stop people from writing books, from, asking somebody out on a date, starting a business, and especially when it comes to getting on camera or getting on the microphone and creating a podcast and just talking to people. And it doesn't matter what career. There's still that. It doesn't matter, like, whatever their success, they could have graduated, had a master's degree, be very successful already in business, and still that imposter syndrome will creep up.
And that creeps up on everyone, and it doesn't stop. I think that's the biggest thing to remember with imposter syndrome, that, I, as I said, I've built these things for the world's largest brand. I've created podcasts. I've been on podcasts. I've done, all the back and forthing. I was on Mark Boris's podcast back in the day, then I thought I'll start my own podcast. And instantly, what business do I have starting my own podcast? And that's what stopped me. And it was only until my friend turned back and said, "Okay, so you're happy with just being the guy that failed to launch Failure to Launch?" So they go, "No, I'm not happy with." Surround yourself with people that'll be happy to put the knife in as well, because in the right way for the right reasons. And that for me stopped me and said, "Okay, well, who cares what the world thinks?" And the interesting thing for me is, I thought, this is so embarrassing. I'm putting this out there to my own private network, my friends and family, people that I'd forgotten about since high school, people that, I can guarantee are going to be sitting there laughing at this, right? Who's this guy? He's wearing his cap sometimes in shots. He looks like a douche, why is he doing this? Right? It has been the exact opposite for me. I have found people from my old high school days that I haven't spoken to since high school reach out and say, "Hey, loving the content that you're putting out. Thanks so much. It's great. Can we jump on a call? I want to pick your brains about X, Y, Z." I've had billionaires, literally billionaires in my network that I worked with once 20 years ago that have reached out and said, "Hey, love the content that you're putting out there. It's so great. I listened to all the episodes." I'm saying, "You're a billionaire, like an entrepreneur billionaire, not just like a trust fund baby." Like, I'm talking, they made the money themselves.
They made the money, right?
They made the money, and they're sitting there reaching out to me about this. And now I'm meeting up with them in New York and doing it. Yeah, this stuff is real. And putting content out there to your network, you think that they're going to, be cynical and everything else. And some will. And that's great. Leave them behind. That's not a problem. But the majority I found these days are actually supportive. And anyone that's done any level of measure of success or been able to overcome their own imposter syndrome will be very supportive.
I found what helps when I'm working with somebody who's got that real deep-seated imposter syndrome. I do this. I say, listen, stop focusing on you.
Mm.
And they go, what? And I say, stop focusing on you. Stop looking at yourself on Zoom and saying, oh, my, I've got a wrinkle, I've got an age spot. Yeah. What about my gray hair? I'm too old, I'm too fat, I'm too this, I'm too that. And I say, who do you want to serve? Who do you want to help? Oh, well, I want to help people, overcome life's adversities. I want to help people lose weight, whatever their passion is, whatever their business is. I want to help children stay safe. Okay, then focus on them, because by you not showing up and you not being on camera, you not doing a podcast, you are pulling away and taking away something that they need. They need your guidance. They need your expertise. They need your inspiration, motivation, entertainment, whatever, humor. So you don't focus on you and what you're wearing. You focus on the audience that you're serving, the people that you're serving. And for some reason, when they get it and they can flip that script and they can go, oh, okay, this is for them. It is.
Yeah.
Because if it's all about you and it's for your ego and it's just all about you and me, my, you're going to have.
I love that.
You're not going to have an audience either.
No. And that is such great advice. That's something that really struck me, because when I exited my last business, I, had the ChatGPT moment. What am I going to do? And a buddy of mine I go snowboarding with, his name's Dan Martell, he's a business coach. And he reached out to me and said, Mike, why aren't you a coach? I said, because I'm not a coach. That's a ridiculous idea. I don't coach people. I don't coach entrepreneurs. And went back and forward. And then he ended up just basically saying, you're being selfish by not sharing all of the stuff that you've learned over the last 20 years with young entrepreneurs.
Boom.
And that sort of hit me. I went, am I being selfish not sharing this stuff? And once I started talking to people and realizing, I hate to say, but like, for people coming to that, how much that I've learned and that they don't know yet, right? And that's for everyone. So the comment of like, I'm too old, that's your superpower, right? You've been around. Yeah. You've been around long enough. And I'm 43 now, so I'm not old, but I'm not young, right? And it's a level of understanding over the last 20 plus years. I've picked up a lot of knowledge and I've made a lot of mistakes, right? And if I can go back and teach someone anything that can save them a year, 2 years, 10 years, or just a massive financial error by making mistakes I've made, well, that's me. I'm done. And if I can sit there at their little pine box at the front of the church and have 1,000 entrepreneurs say, I made my first million because of that guy's advice, well, man, I'm a happy camper.
Because a true coach is a teacher, a leader and a teacher. It's not about saying, I am the guru, come to me because I have all the answers. It's, trust me, I've made these mistakes and I've spent so much stupid money on these things. You don't have to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And facilitating others to learn from others. That's my favorite thing there as well, is getting a group together and just seeing them learn from each other. And it's fun. I really enjoy it on a business level. I'm getting a lot out of it. They're getting a lot out of it. And it's a great community. I think it's something that, wind back 2 years, I would have never thought I'd be doing. If you told me, oh, you're going to be doing podcasting and business coaching and helping others create podcasts and helping people launch their business, I'd just laugh at you, even 12, 18 months ago. But after sitting, post-exit, you sit there on the beach, you have that sort of reflection time, and then you start getting so bored, you start selling beach chairs and you think, what am I going to do next? It's really a question of what value can I add rather than how can I just go launch another business?
Right. What value can I add to people's lives as opposed to also how much money can I make?
Yeah. And you'll find, I think one follows the other, right? Because if you actually put the horse before the cart and do it the right way around, then the other follows.
Yeah. Well, and because you have that beautiful energy too, that passion, and people can feel it.
Yeah.
People can smell the passion.
People can smell passion.
Oh, that's
not so much when it's early morning in London and I'm not well.
You gotta do those movie voiceovers, those the ones.
I don't know what you mean.
Yes, exactly. That's the one.
I had a guy, I still have a friend in Australia who does a lot of the top voiceovers for US stuff as well. And in our old trapdoor studio in Australia, we had a sound booth, and it was always so much. And he's got the real deal.
He's
not
the guy that does the Channel 9 stuff, does he?
He does a lot of stuff with Channel 9. Yeah,
I bet you it's a really done voice.
Oh, it's very deep. And so for his intro video, anyway, we had him in the studio one day and I said, do you mind doing something for me? My wife and my fiance and I are getting married. We want to send out the invite as an animation. And he's like, yeah, no worries. So he gives me the script and he's like, once upon a time, there was Mike and Danielle. And it was this proper, anyway, it was just for an animation invite for our wedding, which is over 10 years ago. So back then it was pretty revolutionary to send something like that. Yeah. But to get Australia's top VO artist to VO it was good fun.
Lovely.
But see, imposter syndrome, you mentioned that I should do that. And I sit there and I go, that's ridiculous. I never do voiceover.
Absolutely, you could.
I know the best voiceover artists, so I'm sitting there going, well, no, I don't sound anywhere near them. So I wouldn't touch it. But that's imposter syndrome again, right?
You just add it to your resume of many things that you can do. And if anybody challenges you on that, you say, well, Christine Blasdale said I can. So if she said I can.
I've got permission. Let's go.
Oh, Mike, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. If people want to find out more about all the work that you do, where do they go? Where do they find you?
No, they can't find me. I'm invisible. I hide. I make sure I'm not seen anywhere. No, look, LinkedIn, obviously, Mike Pritchett. Also on Instagram, as much as I will point out, I've only turned it off private 12 months ago. So you can laugh at my small amount of followers, but please join them, which is just at Mike__Pritchett with 2 T's at the end. Love to have you see some of my content. And if there's anything I can add value, then definitely reach out.
Well, I'll be friending you on that. And are you on the TikToks yet?
I am on the TikTok, same, Mike Pritchett, Pritchett. I enjoy TikTok. It's a great, and anyone creating content, launch it on TikTok first because the algorithms will be true to you there. And there's actually a podcast with Luke Hale that you can have a listen to. He is the head of production for Mark Rober, and he goes into all of the algorithms and which platforms do what. And TikTok is the one to start with.
Oh, TikTok's got a great algorithm.
Yeah.
Brilliant. It knows who wants your stuff.
Absolutely. And it's not about your
uncles and cousins and your old high school kids that you used to go to school with. TikTok is where it's at.
No, absolutely. And it will actually be true to just what is that content and who wants it, as opposed to who are you and how many followers do you already have. So if you're starting from zero, as I was with TikTok, it's a great place to test everything.
Beauty. All right. From your lips to our listeners' ears. My guest today has been Mike Pritchett, and you can find out more information. Go check him out on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on the TikToks, wherever you can find him, and just make sure you friend him, follow him, and get more golden nuggets like we had today. If you like today's show and you want to share it with others, please do that. You can share it. Of course, this is on all the major podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, but of course also we're on YouTube, and so you can share the video. Some people like video, some people like audio. Send it to a lot of different people, and you can share it easily. The YouTube video, you can share it easily on your social media, and people like to click on it because it's an image, it's a picture. So if you want to share that would be great. If you want more information about the work that I do, you can go to ChristineBlasdale.com. And as I always say at the end of these shows, remember to think outside that damn box. Bye for now.